Welcome to the Trust Issues Podcast, the show where we question everything society tells us about how to live, work, eat, and be. I'm Erica Auckland, a mom, entrepreneur, and advocate for living life on your own terms. Here we challenge the status quo, from the food we feed our families to the way that we build wealth and well-being. You'll hear unfiltered conversations with everyone from farmers, financial experts, and everyday people who are doing life differently, all with one goal: to help you live healthier, freer, and more abundant. If you've ever felt like there's more to life than following the crowd, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of the Trust Issues Podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about raw milk. Now, raw milk, while a controversial, at least on Instagram, topic, I just want to anecdotally share my take on raw milk and why I'm so passionate about this episode. Personally, I was someone who struggled with hyperthyroidism, gut issues, major acne, anxiety, chronic fatigue, bloating, digestive issues for many, many years. And I was actually dairy-free for 8 years throughout college, post-college. And then I started consuming raw milk in 2020 after reading a book that completely changed my life. Shout out to Kate Deering. Her book is How to Heal Your Metabolism. And I started actually ordering raw milk from a small farm. Now I think they've kind of blown up, but it's Dutch Meadows Farm in Pennsylvania. It's actually where I grew up, Paradise, Pennsylvania. And living in Tennessee, it was very difficult to find raw milk. I couldn't find it anywhere. I asked around. I was relatively new in the area still in 2020, moved here in 2018. So I couldn't access it because it's not legal to sell in local stores and grocery stores. So you really have to find it from a local farmer. You have to find it from someone that you trust. And I just didn't have a contact at the time. So I was shipping it to my house from a farm states away. And I started consuming it. And really, it was a huge part of my own healing. As I said, was struggling with all these health issues. I saw a complete shift in my health when I started changing what I was consuming. I stopped drinking oat milk. I started drinking raw milk. I stopped eating cashew cheese. I started eating real cheese, raw cheese. And honestly, it just kind of was a huge eye-opener for me that led to so many other things that I learned about and decisions that I started to make for my health that really changed the trajectory of my life and of my health and well-being. Ended up that following year getting pregnant with my son, Dawson. And we had some breastfeeding challenges in the beginning. And needless to say, I came across Weston A. Price Foundation, a foundation that I have followed myself for many years. And they had a formula recipe using raw milk. So I started supplementing my own pumped breast milk with raw milk formula from this ancient recipe that's been around for over 20 years. And I just saw my son thrive. I really just am so grateful for that knowledge and also for the access to raw milk, because I truly believe it was the very best option for me to give him besides my own milk. And then just relying on donor milk was also just kind of stressful, trying to find someone that was going to be able to replenish my stores of what was in my freezer. It was just so much easier for me at the time to make a raw milk formula. And, my son had struggled with some things early on just because of early on in his life, he was exposed to antibiotics. And so us getting him on raw milk helped him with some of his eczema that he was dealing with. And honestly, I want to scream from the rooftops. Raw milk, the benefits of raw milk, how you can support your local farmer. And so I'm really, really honored and really grateful to be interviewing in this episode Mark McAfee. If you're listening to the show, you probably already know how hard it is to find high quality raw dairy products. Maybe you're someone who hasn't even tried yet to find some alternatives to the current dairy products that you are consuming, but you've heard about raw milk, maybe because you've followed me on social media. You're really not likely to see it on your local grocery store shelves unless you live in California, Arizona, Washington State, some of these states where it is legal to sell. But there is so much benefit to consuming raw milk, which Mark explains inside of this episode. And I really want to flip the script on what is commonly spoken about when it comes to raw milk. And I wanted to bring the very best person to speak about it and to really help you understand how this form of raw dairy can be not only delicious, in my opinion, the best tasting milk ever, but also very nutrient packed in its purest form. When you can access clean raw milk, you really can do something amazing for you and your health and the health of your children and your family. And so today we dive into this fascinating world of raw dairy with Mark McAfee. We explore the benefits. We debunk some common myths. He also talks about some current events when it comes to what RFK Jr. is working on in terms of legalizing raw milk and making clean raw milk accessible to Americans nationwide. And I ask him some juicy questions because I know that there's a lot of skepticism and misinformation, we'll use that word, when it comes to this ancient food that has been available to our ancestors since the beginning of time. Mark is an experienced dairy farmer, and he is the owner of Raw Farm USA in California, which was founded in 1998 on the belief that raw dairy products are a foundational food and could be produced safely. Since then, they have brought tested and raw dairy products across the USA. You might even be able to find some of his products in your local Sprouts grocery store. That's where we get his raw cheese. But if you were in California, Arizona, some of these Western states, you might be able to even find his raw milk stocked in their shelves, as well as his kefir. Raw Farm's milk comes from seasonally grass-grazed cows, the most natural way that dairy products can be produced, and the same way that they have naturally grazed since primal eras. So I'm really just excited to bring this conversation to you. When I posted about it on Instagram, I had so many people ask a question for me to ask Mark. And so I try to compile as many questions as I could to bring to him so that you could indulge in this conversation and that you can find the answers to the questions that you have around raw milk. So whether you're pouring yourself a glass of raw milk right now, or you are just curious to see if drinking raw milk for you and your family is the right move, let's dive into this conversation that I have with Mark. I think you're going to find it incredibly enlightening. Mark, welcome to the Trust Issues podcast. I'm pumped to have you.
I am so glad to be here because trust is a big thing right now. I'll tell you that.
It truly, truly is. And I think this is such a timely meet cute of us getting on this interview together because you have been, well, also your farm has been on the front cover of some news publications as of late. And I think the hot topic of raw milk has come up, whether there are, doubts and misinformation, we'll say. And also, I think from an entirely separate group of people, which I find are the people who are listening to this podcast who are very hungry for knowledge and information, and they're questioning a lot of things. And what we've been taught or told about raw milk, maybe it's not so true. So I'd love for you to just get into a little bit of who you are, what your farm is, and then let's get into some of the juicy conversation.
You got it. My name is Mark McAfee, and I'm the founder and CEO of Raw Farm. And we produce the raw milk that's broadly consumed throughout California in about 520 stores and over 1,500 stores nationally with our pet food products. We pioneered this about 25 years ago. I come from a pre-med background. I was a paramedic, and I taught paramedic medicine for years. And I'm also part of the International Milk Genomics Consortium at UC Davis. So I know this subject very, very well, and I can't wait to dive in. This is going to be exciting.
So let's dive into it. You know, as I mentioned, after we actually booked this interview, I started seeing some news coverage pop up on my Instagram, and there's a lot of heat that raw milk is taking right now, just nationally. And also, I know we're going to talk a little bit about the Make America Healthy Again movement and how I think there's a group of us who we really want to remove the lies, remove the cobwebs, just all the smoke and mirrors. And we really want to understand what is the truth around raw milk and what are they trying to make us believe that may or may not be true? I'd love to hear from you specifically on the happenings that are, coming into play with you and your company right now, and you and your farm.
Well, there's so much to talk about here, and I'm excited. I'm bursting at the seams to share it all with you, and we are going to. There's no whole bars here. We're going to get it all in here. Remember that RFK has proposed that raw milk is something he wants everybody in America to get. He is one of my customers in Los Angeles. He buys his milk and gets his milk along with Nicole Shanahan, who is his vice presidential candidate. They're both of our customers. So they know what raw milk is like in California, and they love it. Now, let's get some context around this. We are shut down right now. We cannot produce any more milk for human consumption at our dairy operations. All that milk's being shipped off and sold for pasteurization as of Thursday. Thanksgiving, what an interesting gift to get on Thanksgiving.
Wow.
You can go down to the store right now and you might be able to find some milk left over because we are not on recall. That is so important. If it was a risk or a danger, we would have had our milk recalled. We are not on recall by CDFA. Now, I think that's really a big tell about this entire thing, because let's just take a little dive into this thing. For all the women out there, you're heroes. Let me share with you something very, very interesting that is right there, right in our face, and we're not really understanding it. We are mammals. Women are mammals. I'm a mammal. You're a mammal. Cows are mammals. Sheep, goats, horses, camels, reindeer. All of us are mammals. We are defined by the fact that we nurse our young. So as mammals, what did the CDC say, the Centers for Disease Control say, if a mom had COVID? Did they say stop breastfeeding your baby? No, they said continue breastfeeding your baby because the virus found in your milk will be dead and inactivated. It will have lost its encapsulation from the bioactives found in raw milk, your breast milk, and you will have only the antibodies to the virus you have. It protects them. Use ChatGPT, do your own Google. It's all over the CDC. That's how mammals react to viruses. That's how mammals react to this virus, the H5N1. There have been no reported illnesses anywhere in the United States or anywhere in California. And that's because you can't get sick from raw milk and H5. It's not possible. Raw milk protects its young. So you get a political context here. It's really quite crazy. Remember that the testing that they're doing at the state lab, and by the way, we are prohibited from doing any independent testing. There's only one lab in the state that's allowed to do this testing. And the USDA has a lockdown that no other lab can get the primers, which are the tests for that particular HPI. And they only allow the state lab at UC Davis to get that testing. Remember that PCR, the polymerase chain reaction test, does not detect living virus. It detects pieces of dead genetic material. If you go out to a local store right now and you pick up a gallon of pasteurized milk or a half gallon, it will have dead avian flu viruses all through it. It will have HPI. Because it's been inactivated, it won't be viral. It won't cause any illness. However, did you know the bioactives found in raw milk within minutes, and sometimes they say up to a couple of hours, inactivate viruses? That's why there is no record anywhere that viruses, whether it be SARS, whether it be COVID, whether it be influenza, whether it be, have ever caused a human illness, because mammals protect their young. So this is the biggest crock of shit you've ever heard in your life.
Wow. And honestly, for me as a mom who I have a glass of raw milk right here that I get from a local farm.
Yeah.
I had to pour a glass for you today.
Yep.
And I'll be, transparent in my journey. When I was breastfeeding or attempting to breastfeed my first, I have 2 young boys. My oldest is almost 3. We had some troubles breastfeeding. What did I do? I actually turned to local farms where I could source raw milk. And I truly believe my son thrived. He is so smart. He is so healthy. He rarely gets sick. And raw milk was a huge part of our story and why I am so passionate about this conversation with you, because I think the lies are just so overwhelming and so confusing. So can you talk to me about when it comes to the misconceptions about raw milk? Like you're saying, yes, if I drink raw milk, I'm going to get a virus. I'm going to get avian flu. That's why we have to pasteurize. Can you help me and help our listeners understand a little bit more about some of these misconceptions? Where did they come from? Why are they parroted so much? And what is the actual truth?
The truth of the matter is mammalian evolution and mammalian physiology, the immunology found common amongst mammals, is that mother's milk protects their babies from any kind of viral transfer. It also gives the babies a tremendous amount of immunoglobulins, A and G mostly, IgA and IgG, that actually are very protective. The antibodies, they're very protective against the virus that the mom may have. So that's the truth. Wow. And that's something that all of our experts, we've got experts at Stanford, experts at the Navy bioterrorism place down in San Diego. We've got NIH people. We've got MIT experts. We've got people in private labs saying, you're absolutely right. The viruses found in raw milk are not alive. They're non-vital, and they're not capable of actually causing illness. Now, viruses are not bacteria. You could have a salmonella in the raw milk, and it could make you sick. Yeah, I get that. We're not talking about that. We have an on-farm pathogen lab that tests for salmonella, E. coli, Campylobacter, and Listeria every day and every batch to make sure it's never in our milk. But we are not allowed to get the primers to actually do the testing to detect HPI, because HPI and H5N1 is something that the FDA is, quote, freaked out about, but there's no real basis for being freaked out. You got to remember something. What's constant with viruses? Every year they change.
That's true.
Every year they change. Viruses kill in the influenza about 22,000 people a year, and that's normal, okay? But viruses change every year. The influenza changes every year. That's why when you get vaccinated, if you choose to do so, for the influenza, it doesn't work about 50% of the time or more, because it wasn't the one that was right. It was last year's version. So the question we have for you, viruses change all the time. They adapt. They're resilient. Are you adaptive and are you resilient? That's the question. And the answer is here. In this great meta-analysis here, you can look it up by either doing a ChatGPT and asking bioactives found in raw milk. You'll find it yourself, and you won't have to listen to me. But there are tons of bioactives which are antiviral. They kill, they inactivate, they do all kinds of things to make sure the young doesn't get a virus. The young gets the protection from the virus. That's Mother Nature's blueprint. And that's where the big lie is. The big lie is found in the fact that pasteurization is losing money like you can't believe. Because remember, all the pasteurized milk brands are dying off. They're declining at 3 to 10% per year because of the allergenicity, how allergenic pasteurized milk is. If you go to the FDA website and look at the allergenic foods in America, pasteurized milk is number 1. It does not have all these bioactives that are anti-inflammatory, antiviral, incredible, antihypertensive, anti-tumor, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, antiviral, anti-carcinogenic, immunoregulatory effects, probiotic and probiotic effects, prebiotics, probiotics, remineralization, and modulation of the digestive tract. And by the way, there was a study done at Cornell University in 2021 by the processors, not by the raw milk community, by Cornell or the big processors, to look at the bioactives found in unprocessed milk. Look it up yourself. Cornell University, Dr. Tian Tian Lin et al., funded by the National Dairy Council. And they found extraordinary number of bioactives that are all destroyed or inactivated by heat and pasteurization. And what if they want to do? Go into raw milk and extract it to make a new patented pill or potion or whatever the heck they're going to do, and get it patented to make extra money, but not pay the farmers. Just take it out to make more money. That is a PubMed publication. That's not me. That's not me talking. That's PubMed. So the truth is in Mother Nature's blueprint. The truth is in clean, fresh, delicious raw milk with all of its wonderful probiotics, as well as bioactives that are put there by nature to protect the young or the consumer. Remember, say, oh, well, these antibodies don't fit for humans. No, I'm sorry. Babies are humans just like adults are humans. The digestive tract absorbs these antibodies and utilizes them in our bloodstream. They're absorbed in the tissues, the GI tract of babies, as well as adults. So bottom line is, what we're doing is we're denying consumers access to this incredibly important microbiome building, immune system building food put there by Mother Nature. And so it's really a crime, in my opinion, because what they're doing is suppressing the truth to put forward some weird agenda. And I find extremely revealing this morning. Incredible. I haven't been a big ChatGPT guy, but I've got a friend who's a recent graduate at UC Berkeley, and she said, we use it all the time to get our A's on tests.
I'm on ChatGPT every day. So,
there you go.
Yes.
Well, ask these questions of ChatGPT. Is virus found in mammalian raw milk? They say, no, the antibodies to the virus are found.
Wow.
How long does it take for bioactives in raw milk to inactivate viruses? Minutes, maybe hours.
Wow.
Has there ever been an illness from H5 or H5N1 ever from raw milk in the United States? No. No. The answer is not one. Yes, there have been some farm workers that got conjunctivitis from direct contact with cows. When they were managing them, they were really, really sick. That's true. But you know what? Those went away in 4 or 5 days by themselves. And when they were tested, they had antibodies to H5N1. So these are Mother Nature's protections. And by the way, raw milk is not causing anybody to get sick regarding H5N1. None, zero, zip. And that's what ChatGPT will tell you. It'll say CDC and NIH report none, zero. And H5 has been wildly going across America's herds for 8-9 months now. So I know that there were hundreds, if not maybe 1,000 people, I don't know the number, down in New Mexico. They consumed legal raw milk in May, and they didn't know what was going on, but they had cows that were sick, and it was H5. Nobody got sick.
Wow.
The FDA, I told them about this operation. I said, go down and check. We need to have this sentinel event investigated to find out what happens. We don't know. The FDA refused to investigate. But just weeks later, do you know what they did? They gave Moderna $176 million to produce a vaccine for H5 that doesn't exist in humans. So that shows you the corruption of the lack of misinformation and the lack of suppressing good information. And you can see the Moderna stock going from $352 a share to $40 a share today, or $43, over 3 years. But yet Sprouts Farmers Market shares are 155 or higher, and they were 35 last year. So you can see farmers over pharmacies and food is medicine. That's what's going on here. And we are the whipping boy, the example to be had, to be gotten rid of by the FDA with no evidence, zero. So this is a big story. And we're doing everything we can with independent labs that are doing testing as best we can to sort things out, to get back on the shelves. But I suspect it might be a couple of weeks before herd immunity takes forth and we actually pass through this. Remember, there's 1,000 dairies in California, and 500 of them are positive for this, and 200 have already become immune. They've already passed through that herd immunity. And so it's our turn. It's our turn. These are Mother Nature's blueprints, and this is what's going to happen. But just remember, you're not going to get sick from this milk if it has H5 in it, because the antibodies are there, not the actual H5 itself.
Mark, I think this is exactly why so many of us mothers, specifically the Make America Healthy Again, just crusaders, we'll call ourselves on Instagram. You know, it's just so prevalent in my community where we're just sick and tired of the lies. We're sick and tired of a government, of an FDA that is doing these things purposely to not only keep information from us, but change information. Well, and I think everybody right now is where everyone's talking about this RFK transition team. I mean, everybody wants to know how raw milk is going to be seen or changed. I know what you were saying about how RFK wants it available. Do you know how this is going to happen? Are you a part of this team? Can you share anything with us about this transition team?
RFK put his finger on something. People are sick and tired of being sick and tired. Mm-hmm. And that's because we're relying on drugs solely, and we're ignoring the principles of good nutrition. And that good nutrition should include the bioactives found only in raw milk. And they've been in raw milk for ages, forever, for hundreds of thousands of years, and protected mankind. So yes, I have been honored to be asked to be a part of the FDA advisory, chief advisor for raw milk policy and raw milk standards. And that contact has been made. The application's been made. There's nobody in the world that understands the production of raw milk, the training of other farmers in raw milk, because we do that at the Raw Milk Institute, which I founded 12 years ago, so that all the good news we could share with all farmers, so we could all rise together, not just my brand, but all of us together to serve all humanity. And I believe that America can be made healthy again. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be fast. we have a lot of really sick people that have lost their Akkermansia bacteria, which is the bacteria that make the internal mucosal lining in our intestines. And as a result, we don't have those normal protections structurally in our bodies. We can drink all the raw milk we can, but it's going to take months, if maybe not years, for the whole food nutrition and getting away from antibiotics and getting away from preservatives and Roundup and all those things that destroy these bacteria colonies and the reservoirs of those colonies and the protective layers that are missing or thin. That's why we have Crohn's disease, a million cases of Crohn's disease and 130,000 cases of ileostomies. So people poop in plastic bags and that's considered normal. It's a tragedy. So make America healthy again is a politically incorrect, very inconvenient truth, as Al Gore would say, because what it's going to do is say, farmers, you matter. It's going to say whole food nutrition, you matter. And drugs, you matter too, but you better take a back seat because you know what? We want to prevent this so we won't have to rely so much on you because we can't afford you anyway. In 1962, we're spending about 6% of our gross national product on pharmaceuticals and drugs and doctors and medications. Now it's 26%. Are we getting any healthier? No. We're on a slide downhill to a bad place. My whole point in saying this is RFK, God bless his heart. I am on his team. We're part of MAHA. I'm not appointed yet, but the appointment process is going as we speak, and it will take probably the next month or two. He has to be confirmed first.
Right.
But the people he's put around him, Dr. J, I can't remember his last name, from Stanford, who's the immunologist there, who's going to be in charge of the NIH. Fantastic choice. I love the guy. He's great. Other scientists that embrace the understanding of good health in the gut microbiome. Fantastic. That will make America so much healthier, but it's going to take some time. It took us a while to get here. It's going to take a while to dig ourselves out. But at the same time, we're going to be embracing food as medicine. By the way, the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act forbids anybody from saying food is medicine. Only drugs are allowed to have a cure. You cannot say that raw milk has these wonderful benefits for asthma, which all the European studies show. That in fact, raw milk consumption decreases flu and influenza and colds dramatically when children consume it. And that raw milk makes asthma go away or get much, much better in the children that consume it. Did you know that 13 children die every day in America from asthma?
What?
13, yeah, look it up yourself. 13 children every day. And as a paramedic,
that's crazy.
That left deep wounds in my body, my soul. Crying with the parents losing a child in my ambulance because I couldn't do enough epinephrine or intubate or CPR. Let me tell you, that's a tragedy. So my point of saying this is I'm passionate, I'm driven, and I've got purpose to serve.
Well, I cannot wait to see what this transition team looks like. We are backing you. We are behind you. We are, one of the questions that, and I have so many more questions to ask you, but one of the questions that my audience asked was obviously buying raw milk to support the farmer, whether it's your product that they can access or another farmer locally that they can support. What else can we do? What else can we do as an organization or, as a community rather, to support this movement?
I would say, and I say this without hubris. I say this very, very humbly, extremely humbly. I would love for everyone to say, we want Mark McAfee to be our voice at the FDA so we can all access three things: good standards, good farmer training, and testing. So we can all have really good, clean raw milk. Farmers need to be supported. They need to know what and how to do raw milk for human consumption. Right now, all we have is the pasteurized milk ordinance. We do not have the raw milk ordinance. I want to put together the raw milk ordinance, which helps support farmers to do a really good job of serving their local communities. I want all of us to thrive. I know that all of the listed farmers at Raw Milk Institute are thriving because they have good standards intended for human consumption, good training, and they have the ability to do on-farm testing with their on-farm labs. And that is really powerful. That will enable farmers to thrive. Right now, we are losing 5.5 dairies a day in America.
Wow.
They're serving the pasteurizers because of low milk prices and dairy. But we're not losing cows. They're just being bought up by the bigger operations, and the smaller operations are going away. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see some of these smaller operations have the choice to do raw milk for their local community? Raw Farm, we love to serve all and feed all, but I tell you what, we can't, we won't. We have to have everybody doing this. So the bottom line is, I would be the voice in Washington, D.C., I'm not going to spend my life there, but I will spend time there to make sure that the voices at the FDA equally represent farmers producing whole food raw milk for consumers in a responsible, very high integrity standards way. And that's something we need to have all the voices of America say. We want that choice. You don't have to drink it if you don't want. That's fine. But if you're going to have that choice, let farmers thrive, consumers thrive, and that's what we need to go forward.
We would love to see that. And I think for anyone listening who is like, okay, what are those standards? When you go to Washington and you say, this is the ordinance that we're going to build, what are the standards of, like you're saying, clean raw milk for human consumption?
Raw milk for human consumption in California, which is one state that allows retail sale. There's others. I'll just give you an example of what we do here. We cannot have human pathogens in the milk. It includes no listeria, no salmonella, no E. coli, and no campylobacter. In our lab, we can test for all four of those things and get a detection or lack thereof or a clearing sample within 20 hours. So before that milk ever gets into the bottle, we know what's in the milk. So we have to not have pathogens in the milk, number one. Number two, we have to be less than 10 coliforms, which is the measure of sanitation in the milk for pasteurization after being pasteurization. So we have to meet and exceed pasteurized milk standards without pasteurization.
Wow.
The sanitary standards for pasteurized milk on the farm being sold pasteurization, you could have 750 coliforms per milliliter. And at the creamery, they don't even check because it's too numerous to count. So we're talking about really clean milk, never commingled with any other dairy. And the cows are checked to make sure that they're healthy, they're being fed well. And from grass to glass, the farmer has a plan to serve his local community. That's the general idea there. Now, there's more detail. Obviously, we train farmers, but that's a general context that you're going to have safe, tested, clean, fresh, raw milk from a local farmer that you can visit and know, not some processor that gets milk from 10 and 15,000 cow dairies from all over the place, and you don't have a clue where it came from. And they don't want to show you where it came from because it's not a pretty place. And they're going to pasteurize the living heck out of it, and all the bioactives will be gone. So the protective make America healthy again stuff is missing. It's gone. The good bacteria, they're destroyed. They become pieces of bacteria, which the body doesn't like, rejects, and causes inflammation and allergy and rejection. So making America healthy again is a project for all farmers, not just raw milk producers. It's going to be the vegetable growers. It's going to be meat producers. It's going to be raw milk producers. It's going to be everybody. It's going to be taking out all those crazy ingredients in our foods we can't even understand or pronounce. It's going to be coming down to 3 and 4 things in our food instead of 50 and 80 that we can't pronounce. It's going to come down to no more of these food colorings and crap. This may follow more of the European model versus the corrupt industrial model, which is literally sacrificing our lives to make money.
Wow. I think the last few weeks with everything that's happened, I've had this because where I get raw milk, it says not for human consumption. I live in the state of Tennessee. So everything says for its pet product, right? I'd love for you to explain that. I feel like I've been living a dream in this possibility of it being more accessible, of it being more recognized, protected, because where we go, we have to find these little corner markets, or we have to find a farmer who actually sells it at the farmer's market who will have just a couple gallons and then he's sold out. It's very tricky to find. And so can you explain why some states are selling this product as a pet food?
Well, the pet food is less regulated, and it's really very condescending for human consumption because it means you have to be a dog or a cat. So most people choose probably not to do that, but you're passionate, you're educated, you know what's going on, you know your farmer, and you will do that because you'll do that sacrifice. But other people generally won't. So it's a way of suppressing interest in human consumption raw milk. Now, remember, each state has the right to create their own standards for raw milk. California did, New Mexico did, Arizona did, state of Washington did, Pennsylvania has, Delaware just passed the laws in April this year, Connecticut, Maine have. Every state are kind of the same. They're roughly the same, but a little different, but generally speaking, pretty good. There is no federal standard. The only standard at the federal government is a massive barrage, a continual media blitz against raw milk. And that is really very disruptive, very non-constructive. It's very destructive, and it's hard to battle against. But we've noticed something with influencers, and that is, generally speaking, a lot of influencers say, if the FDA says I shouldn't do it, darn well, I'm going to start doing it. Because that's exactly what they're doing. They are promoting their own interests with a revolving door of industry that makes money on not only sick people, but also more vaccination and highly processed foods. I would put UHT and UP and ultra high temperature pasteurized milk in the highly processed foods category because it no longer has the living elements that are good for you. I attend the International Milk Genomics Consortium every year. And these guys are the brightest minds that study lactation, human lactation, cows. We've studied camels. I mean, it's everything, reindeer. And I'm the only farmer in the room. The only one. I've been the only farmer in the room for 12 years. And every year I collect that information, I bring it back and I apply it to our practices here. And I train other farmers. I teach other farmers about things I've learned from this deep science, which is not revealed in the public. And the processors don't want the public to know about it because it reveals their weaknesses and their problems. It's a great renaissance, a great reveal of the truth. And now with ChatGPT, I found it to be extremely reliable as data. And it's very, very consistent. I've asked questions like I mentioned earlier on this podcast, and I found that the PubMed reviews are exactly the same. So with rare exception, I think that ChatGPT is a pretty good place to at least ask the right questions. And then you can dive deeper to find better answers. But bottom line is their answers have been right on.
Wow. Mark, one thing that you're giving me an onslaught of, data and all this stuff. And I think that, the skeptics want to poke holes in all of it. And one thing that when I was doing some research on you and Raw Farm, I came across a lawsuit against your company. Yep. I think it was in 2023, labeling, raw dairy products as pet food. And this conversation we're already currently having. Can you tell us a bit about this lawsuit,
Sure.
Why the products are labeled for a pet, or why that lawsuit ended up being thrown out, as I saw?
That lawsuit did not occur this year. That lawsuit occurred back in 2007 or 8.
Oh, okay. All right.
And there's a great little juicy story here I'll share with you. I called our local FDA representative. I said, hey, are there any particular approvals I have to get from you to label my products as pet food and ship it across state lines? And he said, no, there isn't. There's no pre-approval process. Just do it and we'll look at it afterwards. I said, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ellsworth. Appreciate that very much. I copied the email. It was there for me. And it was all fine. So we had people wanting our raw milk in other states, namely Nevada and Oregon. And so the FDA did a sting operation on us by ordering our products across state lines. And they would call our office and say, hey, my sister lives in California and she drinks your raw milk all day long, but I'm over here in Nevada. Can I get some too? Can you ship it to me? We said, well, it's labeled for pet food consumption only. They said, I don't care. I'll drink it anyway. And our staff weren't sharp enough at the time, now they are, to say, well, we drink it too, no big deal. Well, that was a sting operation, an undercover sting operation. 2 undercover investigators, 2 different states, we shipped the product to them. And then lo and behold, about 6 weeks later, we have a major indictment coming against us. The first thing I said was, I am guilty as charged 100%. Show me how I violated the law, because I contacted the local FDA and they said no pre-authorization required. They said, oh, you didn't follow this standard. You didn't follow that standard. You didn't follow that standard, the other standard. And I was right. I did not follow all those standards that I did not understand because I didn't go deep enough. I was pretty naive. We now have a permit from the FDA. And we're selling raw milk as frozen raw milk across the United States. We also have a permit for doing other pet foods as well, kefir and so on and so forth. So it was an absolute game plan to try to shut me down any way they could. And what the information you're sharing was in 2023 was something called a decree, because that ban that they had was an ugly, terrible thing. We have to post it all over, these warnings all over the place, do these crazy things that nobody else has to do, by the way. I have to tell them if I buy any more equipment or do anything in any of my operations, I have to tell them, or I'm in violation of the court order. I have to tell them if I'm going to make any kind of claim on our food, but nobody else has to do that. So that was never going to expire. It was going to be forever for the rest of my life against me personally. So the decree said, wait a minute, we insisted that the courts put a a sunset clause that when it was going to disappear and go away. And so now the FDA has to make that decree go away in another 3.5 years because we've been fully compliant with all of their laws and regulations. But this is just one example of the heavy-handed FDA actions when nobody's sick, nobody's going to get sick, and the FDA just wants raw milk to go away because the revolving door relationships they have with big processors say to do so. That's their job to get rid of raw milk because it's competing with pasteurized milk.
It's just like it's an onslaught. It's yep. Literally every way you turn, they're against you. And it's maddening. I'm almost speechless at it because, you're standing here and you're still fighting and just knowing what is occurring right now in present day, what you've been dealing with for years, and you keep showing up because you believe in this so much. It's just, you were saying earlier, you said the words weird agenda. What is the weird agenda? Is it just because processors, these, big dairy farms are losing so much money? Like, what is it? What do you think?
Well, I'll share with you. I was told that I could change that agenda by attending and making a speech at the NCIMS conference, the National Conference of Interstate Milk Shippers in Florida in 2007. I had all the science, I had everything. Didn't have all the stuff we've got now, but I had all the science collected, ready to go. So I went down and I was actually allowed and invited as part of a process to present to the NCIMS at their science committee. And lo and behold, I made a speech in front of them. And after that speech, I had hundreds of people in the room. Up front, there was the known guys, the Horizon guys, all the guys, the yogurt people, all right there. And after that speech, I had a stack of documents in my hand. And I said, I want to deliver this to the FDA to let them know that there is a different set of standards for raw milk for human consumption. And that is what we're following. You're not following the pasteurized milk standards. And I said, I completely agree with you that the pasteurized milk should be pasteurized. Your standards reveal that. We need to do that. But we're raw milk from a single dairy, from a responsible production, with all the testing and all the things we're doing with being clean with the cow and all this stuff. That doesn't need to be pasteurized. And people are looking for these bioactives found in raw milk. When I had that stack of paper and I went over to the FDA person to give that to them, they got up and literally ran away. Physically got up and trotted. And when I tried to say, wait a minute, they refused to turn their back and ran as hard as they could back to their hotel room because they did not want to receive the document. That is where it all began in 2007.
I'm just imagining this picture in my mind. Just grown adults running from the truth.
Well, he was wearing a Navy uniform because these higher ups in the FDA wear Navy command type of uniforms. And so it was very funny to see this civilian and this guy who's got a military uniform running away because he didn't want to receive the information formally from this guy who had just made a speech.
Sure.
They refused to meet with us ever. They refused to ever. So it is very much a protected thing that they're trying to do. Go ahead.
No, and I can imagine. I can see why, but, they're not going to stop us because I think the listeners I have right now, this is the question I was going to ask you, listeners that I have right now are so, like I said, hungry for the truth. They want to raise healthy, vibrant children. They want to do better for their kids than was done to them. And raw milk has become a huge conversation. But the biggest question is, where can I find it, Erica? I live in, I actually grew up in Pennsylvania. So there was a time that I was shipping my raw milk from a small Amish farm called Dutch Meadows in Paradise, PA, because I couldn't find it here in Tennessee. Since then, there's a couple farmers that I trust that I can access, and I can go and I drive 40 minutes for our raw milk that we pick up. And it would be so much easier for me to just, Instacart grass-fed milk. But what I know, and especially after hearing so much from you, there is nothing that can compare it to raw milk. So I drive 40 minutes for it, but the mothers and the women that specifically listen to this show and who are wanting to go and source what you're saying, clean raw milk, where should they start? Who should they talk to? What questions should they ask of the farmer to know that what they're getting is a trusted product?
I would first start by asking every one of your listeners to scream bloody murder. They need to get online and say, why can't I have what people have in other states where it's legalized? Mm-hmm. Why am I denied that right? And ask that of the RFK team. Ask that of the people that are going to become in charge. And ask them to please establish standards for raw milk for human consumption instead of raw milk only for pasteurization. And that is a health rights issue, health access right issue. You can't get healthy if you don't have access to the food you need to eat. So that is a beginning. The other thing is, I would look up the Raw Milk Institute, and we have a dairy finder that actually allows you to find access to the local dairies that have had high levels of training to produce raw milk. And there are farms beyond our list that know what they're doing, that have done a good job. And it's incumbent on all customers to say, what are the standards you're using to produce raw milk? Have you done any testing? What are your coliform levels? And don't do it in a way that's demeaning or making them feel like they're not good enough, because farmers are under attack already. It's not easy for them to do all the work and then answer questions that are hard. But what you can do is, in a warm, loving way, after you've paid them and given them a big hug and say, thank you, I love your milk so much, say, could you tell me more about your food safety plan? And if they don't know anything about anything, have them contact the Raw Milk Institute, because we give free training. And there's a 4-hour video they can watch that will help them understand how to produce raw milk very, very well without being formally trained. So the resources are out there. rawmilkinstitute.org, rawmilkinstitute.org has that. And we've trained thousands of farmers, even 175 farmers in Great Britain, at the request of the Food Safety Agency there, because they were not passing their good tests. Because guess what? They were selling raw milk intended for pasteurization to humans, not selecting out and doing the job as a subcategory of raw milk for human consumption versus raw milk for pasteurization. So that's a great organization to connect with for your farmer to get help. And we're not the raw milk police. We're very friendly, and we help farmers. We operate the only 911 call place in the world to get help if farmers are in trouble, but we would rather prevent them from getting trouble so that we can actually do a good job to serve humanity.
Wow. You're truly out here doing the Lord's work, Mark. It's just,
well,
it's amazing.
Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
What would Jesus say? What would he do? And what would he eat? Who would he take care of?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a big religious guy, but I am a total, absolute dedicated follower of what Jesus would do. That's where my heart is at, 100%.
Mm-hmm. Mine as well, for sure. I think that's why we align on so many things. And I think, one of my final questions for you is, what do you want our listeners, to walk away with in terms of an action plan? Like you said, scream bloody murder on social media. We want to support you. Could you give us a couple, is there a specific place we can go to maybe even sign up for a newsletter that you may have? How can we stay in touch with you and this movement? Because we want to see this through. We want to see this all the way to Washington so we can have a systemic change for generations. I think about my kids, and I want my kids and their kids to have access to, to health, the right to the products that are going to help them thrive. So what can we do? Give us a little mini action plan, if you would, Mark.
Well, this is not about Raw Farm and our brand at all. So it's not that. This is about having the right voices that know the right things, to ask the right questions, to build the right team, to lead the FDA to a better place. It's also maybe about firing the right people too. It's about hiring the right people. I'm not a big firing guy. There's a tremendous brain trust in the FDA that's really, really good, but maybe they could get educated. Maybe they would say, listen, you're going to listen to some stuff for a little while, and we're going to look into the back labs where this information, but it's been suppressed, and bring them forward and give them an opportunity before they get rid of them. I know RFK said, pack your bags if you don't support these agenda items. And I'm okay with that. But at the same time, I don't believe in throwing out the baby with the bathwater until you've heard what they have to say. If they're not supportive and they're not helpful, then why aren't you? And I want to know why you're not helpful. And do you have any evidence or science that we don't know about yet before I fire you? But I'll give you a chance, because I want to hear you out, right? If it's bias and support of industry and no interest in learning, see ya. So we have to be firm, fair, open-minded, and we have to be scientists. We have to be lifelong learning people. To all the people listening, scream bloody murder. You're being denied your rights to access to milk that is good quality, wonderful raw milk. And you're also denying the farmers to serve your local communities, which they need to do badly. So farm to consumer is very important. Farmers over pharmacies, great. We're not saying we can get rid of pharmacy. No way. Insulin, we have to have it for the diabetics. We have to have the anti-inflammatory nerve medications for those who have seizures. We get that. But what are we going to do to prevent these diseases in the next generation and make this generation healthier? It's going to be whole foods, unprocessed whole foods. So there's a place for both safe, delicious raw milk. There's a place for pasteurized milk if you want it. There's also a place for good pharmaceuticals, but it should not be forced upon us as our only choice and never be able to prevent. So I would love to have support, endorsement, encouragement, my name mentioned. Go on Twitter and say, Mark McAfee needs to be our voice in Washington, D.C., so we can all have access to these foods. And Nicole Shanahan, RFK, and the entire team there, they're watching. So let my name resonate. I think it's important. I'm doing this in service to our country. This is not a political move at all. I am just sick and tired of being sick and tired and seeing people. I ran 15,000 paramedic calls between when I was 19 or 20 years old and when I was 36. 16 years of EMS. I saw the worst of the worst and the best of the best and everything in between.
Wow.
I know humanity and I know how it's presenting with our current systems. They're just not serving us well. And I want to be, in my later chapters in my life, I'm 63, I want to make a major change for the new generation and the future and have raw milk have a good place in our food chain so that it can be respected, because we can apply all of our wonderful technologies to these cows to know if they have a problem or not. And so this is a movement of we the people. And I've often said they may have the guns and the money, but I got the truth and the moms. So that's where I stand.
Don't get in the way of the moms, the Maha moms. We're angry. We're pissed. I love that.
Yes.
Mark.
Well, you never stand between a mom and the truth, or a mom and good food for her babies. Mm-hmm. You're going to get some mother lion, mother bear stuff going on. And we need more of that. We really do.
We do. Yeah. It's like, why is it so hard? Why is it so hard for the modern mother in our country to know what to feed her child, or to know how to support her kid's health? Or, you know, it's eczema, it's allergies, it's illnesses, it's an onslaught. It's constant. And I'm, you know, I see on social media if you say one thing about raw milk, I mean, oh my gosh, the pitchforks come out. People are so like, they can't believe I would feed that to my child. I'm a child abuser. It's so interesting.
You know what? There's a bridge of trust here that I can help you with.
Let's bridge it.
The bridge of trust is this. We commonly say this. We never ever sell raw milk. We teach raw milk. Mm. Now, let's teach people about breastfeeding. I know all moms can't do that, but look at the CDC, look at the NIH, look at the World Health Organization, look at the USDA. They say, please, mamas, breastfeed your babies. It's fantastic for them. All these fantastic benefits. 90% of those same things come from cows and their raw milk for us. Not all of them. There's some specialized things that mom has for us, but the rest of the bioactives and everything are all there, including the antivirals and the bioactives. They're all there. They're found in mammals, especially cows and people, which are very similar in their genome. So we have a great opportunity right now to make America much healthier. Mm-hmm. And we can do that by making sure the plate before us, the food before us, is whole, unprocessed, or less processed, and filled with all of its wonderful things that are put there by God or put there by Mother Nature. Choose where you want it to come from. But these are powerful things that we need on our plate in America and on our cups in America to make ourselves healthy.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's like what you've said so many times, just to reiterate, it's like so that you can have the choice. So I can choose. If you don't want to partake, totally fine. If you're like, raw milk's not for me, totally cool.
Great.
But we should have the choice and also have the ability to source good, clean milk and support
Correct.
the farmer who is doing the work. So, Mark, I appreciate you so much and your time. I know you have so much on your plate currently. Where can our audience connect with you, follow you? Where's the best place? Should they connect with you on Twitter, Instagram?
Well, I've been banned by the FDA to have a social platform.
Oh,
isn't that
surprise.
Interesting? Isn't that interesting? Well, I had a social platform. It was called Farmers Over Pharmacies, and they required under the decree that it be removed, even though I made no medical claims. Wow. So what we ask people to do is follow Raw Farm. You can follow them, but also rawmilkinstitute.org has a lot of information there. Raw Farm that's That's the handle, raw under / farm. We have 80 million connections per week going on over there. It's just insane. Wow. So that's where I begin. But yeah, this is a big deal.
It's a big deal. And like I said, again, thank you for all of your work you're doing. I truly believe that, I just feel that so much change is coming. I think we all feel it. And there's been moments where I'm like, is this too good to be true? But we're going to do everything we can to not only support our local farmers, but also support you, Mark, because if we can get this to the White House, I think this would be just a true win for us and for generations.
It was not something I expected to occur. It was like blew me away that this happened with RFK and Make America Healthy Again. I was blown away. I was like, this accelerates change so quickly. So thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's been delightful. You've asked great questions. And ask ChatGPT some of these questions if you have it. And I believe most of the time it comes up pretty darn true.
We will. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for listening to the Trust Issues podcast. So there you have it. That episode with Mark, honestly, personally blew my mind. There's a lot of things that I already knew, but he really educated me far beyond what I had already had in my knowledge. And I loved his tip about using ChatGPT to ask some of these questions and maybe tune out the noise a little bit of what you hear on social media or what you've been told about raw milk, because that's the truth, right? Think about it. Who has told you what to believe about raw dairy? Maybe it's time to start having some trust issues and start questioning those sources. Don't forget to follow Raw Farm on Instagram. They're at raw_farm_USA. You can order your own raw milk from a local farmer, as Mark suggested, or if you can access some of his products in your local stores, please do so. They're fantastic. I specifically love his raw cheese as well as the shredded raw cheese because it doesn't have any of those suspect ingredients like cellulose, which is essentially wood pulp that we are digesting or not digesting. Make sure you check out their website at rawfarmusa.com and be sure to subscribe to Trust Issues podcast from wherever you're tuning in from today. If you love conversations like this, if you are curious about more of these hot topic issues, I'll be sure to bring more of these conversations in episodes to come. I'll see you next time.